Well, thanks, Kirk. It's great to be here again and a few times this month, which is really quite wonderful. And I want to take a minute just as we begin to just everybody take a deep breath and dedicate the merit of this talk to Jimmy Carter, a wonderful social justice champion who died today at 100 years of age. So we'll just take a minute to bring him into the room with us. Thank you. So today I just am really aware that at this time of the year we have a number of celebrations, and some people are really quite over them, and but that's not going to stop them, right? And so today, happy Hanukkah to those of you who are celebrating the fifth night of Hanukkah. If anybody here is following the Kwanzaa celebration of the African American community, this is the fourth day, and it's called Ujama. And that's a day on which the principle that's celebrated on that fourth day is the principle of cooperative or shared economics. And it's a time spent thinking about how is the resources of the community raised and shared with a specific goal towards that there be equality and justice. And so many of us probably don't celebrate Kwanzaa on an annual basis, but with Elon Musk as the president and Donald Trump as the vice president, I think it's a good time to think about how we're going to move forward into the next year, thinking about issues of justice and economic justice and billionaire boys clubs and starving children. So lots to think about there. So this is a day during the Kwanzaa celebration when it seems like an ideal thing. I've been thinking a lot about what the meaning of the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. Some people will see 2024 out the door, or some of us in our communities that we all live in and work in and practice in actually said goodbye to 2024 in the first week in November. Just goodbye, we're done with that year. But I think there's some really interesting ways that we as Buddhists and practitioners can really take a look at this. I happened to open up the New York Zen Center's website this morning, and Koshin Paley Ellison was talking about the Yojinki, which is a classic text that talks about the main points of Zazen. And he describes Zazen as coming home. And he invites us to drop the identities and stories that separate us from ourselves and others. And Paley Ellison says, how can we set down what is hiding and separating us from one another and be truly at home within ourselves in our service to others? And so for those of us in Soto Zen and Mahayana tradition, the Bodhisattva vows that guide our lives. And so it's no wonder, I think, that as the year comes to a close, and these are, in fact, our shortest, darkest days, and this year particularly, they're also a little bit rainy and so forth, a little bit cold. All of these various spiritual traditions have holidays. Hanukkah, also known as the Festival of Light, Kwanzaa, where a candle is lit every day, Christmas, where we light up trees and front yards and tables and so forth. And everybody comes together and celebrates with brightness, with light, reminding us that even on the shortest day of the year, it's possible through decoration for sure, but mostly through coming together, through coming home, and finding where it is that we feel most at home and most safe, and what our invitation and opportunity is to create that safety for ourselves and for others. And solstice and Yule, thank you. Somebody just added there more holidays that also involve light. So thank you very much for that. But as we're preparing for a new year, I think it's really a wonderful opportunity for us to do some reflecting. As Buddhists, we might be thinking that all this end of the year stuff that people do, reflecting on the past year and planning what we'll do in the next year, sort of is counterintuitive if we live in the present moment. But I think in my experience as a community-oriented or social justice-oriented Buddhist, there's nothing in any of the teachings or sutras that says we shouldn't be engaged for the benefit, live and be lived for the benefit of all beings. And that really involves, as we say in the recovery world, doing the next right thing. And so I think this is a real opportunity for us to do that. Um, uh, some of what happened in this past year was a little dark and troublesome for some of us. And for some people, it was more than the discouraging of seeing political people win who we wouldn't have liked to see win or any of that stuff. But it's a deeper thing that I think we get a chance as we come to these holidays and embrace each other, and we think about it as moral injuries. And those were originally in the profession that I'm in thought to be things that were experienced by people mostly in war when the concept first came up, or people who had suffered tremendous traumatic experiences. But where we've come to work with moral injuries now is when the things that you hold core, the things that are most important to you in terms of building your family, your sangha, your support group, your enlightened witnesses, as Bell Hooks calls our friends, and those folks somehow disappoint you, or those folks somehow behave in ways that you just don't understand. And I think for a lot of us who had the experience of this year's election, and then the experience of being with friends and family from near and far, we've experienced that. You know, who were these people that I thought I knew so well, and that made decisions that maybe I just don't understand. And I don't think it pays any benefit to be angry with those folks. I think it pays for us to do what we know as Buddhists that we should do, which is extend compassion and wisdom and kindness, and try and find out how it is that we got such different messages, and that we didn't connect communication-wise before those elections. But no matter how tough it is, I think that Maya Angelou in the inaugural poem for Barack Obama said, "And still we rise." So that is, I think, as Buddhists, we know that our job is to live and be lived for the benefit of all beings. And so we don't get the opportunity to say, well, it didn't go my way, so for the next hour, day, week, 4 years, I'm not going to do anything. I don't think that's what we get to do. I think instead what we get to do is come home to the fact that all of those people and all of our people are one people, first of all, and we all have Buddha nature. So what we can do is love each other and come to understand each other, and do what Ellison said, Koshin Ellison said, which is to find our home and come home. First, coming home to ourselves, as we would do in a metta prayer, and then coming to those we love, coming to those we could love, should love, used to love, and then to the folks who are further out, and extending that. I want to share with you, I'm not going to read the whole poem because it's long, but I recommend it to you. It's called A Brave and Startling Truth. It's by Maya Angelou. And Dr. Angelou says this: "We, this people on a small and lonely planet, traveling through casual space, past aloof stars, across the way of indifferent suns, to a destination where all signs tell us it is possible and imperative that we learn a brave and startling truth. And when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from fists of hostility and allow the pure air to cool our palms, when we come to it, when the curtain falls on the minstrel show of hate and faces suited with scorn are scrubbed clean, when battlefields and coliseums no longer rake our unique and particular sons and daughters up in the bruised and bloody grasses to lie in identical sites. When we come to it, then we will confess that not the pyramids with their stones set in mysterious perfection, nor the gardens of Babylon hanging as eternal beauty in our collective memory, not the Grand Canyon kindled in delicious colors by Western suns, not even the Danube flowing like its blue soul into Europe. When we come to it, we, this people on this minuscule globe, who reach daily for a bomb, the blade, and the dagger, yet who petition in the dark of night for tokens of peace. We, this people on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living. Yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness that the haughty neck is happy to bow and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, out of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety and without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible, we are the miraculous, the true wonders of this world. That is when and only when we come to it, we come home. So, so I think what I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of weeks is just all the different ways that we can do that and how we find a space in which to do that and how we use our practice. And here's a little bit of a talk by Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "It is the illusion of a separate permanent self that chains us to suffering and dissatisfaction. We put most of our energy into protecting the self, trying to gratify it, and clinging to impermanent things that we think will enhance it. But belief in a separate, permanent self leads to craving that is the source of our suffering." And so I think it's this opportunity that we have as we transfer from one year to another, as from one week to another, from one day to another. We have this wonderful opportunity to really begin to say, what would create a home that's loving, like a Sangha? What would create a place where we can have peace and ease and quiet and bliss? And of course, we remember that Dogen said that the practice of Zazen is the gateway to peace and bliss. Ease and joy, different translation of that. And what a wonderful thing that is. And our very own Suzuki Roshi told us that sitting Zazen is absolutely vital, very, very important. But when you get up from the cushion, you must take the mind of Zazen into everything else you do. So I think that's a wonderful opportunity for us to say what we experience in Zazen is something that we have this wonderful opportunity for arousing mindful awareness and figuring out who we are, who we want to be, what next steps we can take to be that person, and how we can do that. As we say in recovery, we can do together what we can never do alone. So these are all important messages for us as Buddhists to remind ourselves of, to share with each other, and to turn our lights on each other so that we can see the path more clearly. The Gospel of Thomas has a line in it that I really like, even though the wise heads in that other church got rid of the Gospel of Thomas. But here's what it says: "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." And so I think, that's a really powerful message that, this Zazen that we practice, this arousing of mindful awareness, this being concerned about living a life for the benefit of all beings is an awesome task. And it can be frightening, it can be overwhelming, it can feel like, well, what can a little person sitting in West Portal do for the folks in Boise and Portland and the East Bay and all the other places that people might be on this call? And I think one of the ceremonies that I really, really appreciate is one by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's called Beginning Anew. And so I'm going to take just a few minutes. I'm not going to read the whole thing of this either because it's a little bit long, but I can share this or that poem with any of you that would like it. But if everyone would just find a comfortable place to sit and maybe rest into your sitting bones, rest for a few minutes. And these are several paragraphs that I first heard and participated in at Plum Village back a long, long time ago. It's called the Beginning Anew ceremony. And so I'll read a paragraph and then you will hear a bell ring. And when you do, we just sit and take a few deep breaths and then we'll move on to the next paragraph. So I invite you to really enjoy these teachings from Plum Village. With great respect, we turn towards the awakened way, offering heartfelt words of repentance. We have lived in forgetfulness for a long time. Our heart's garden is sown with weeds of greed, hate, and delusion. Our everyday words and deeds can do damage. All these unskillful actions and obstacles to our peace and joy. May we begin anew. As people in communities we recognize the attitudes, words, and actions we engaged in order to protect ourselves, heal ourselves, and create a life in which we were visible, safe, and respected. We recognize that those behaviors, once skillful and necessary, may have become harmful to self or others and could cause the family or the Sangha to break. As we enter 2025 to embrace healing, wellness, sobriety, service, and calm abiding, we experience and celebrate sanity and spiritual fitness. There is much to do, and we vow together to engage in these activities. May we begin anew. We have experienced suffering caused by ourselves and by others. It is possible to lead a life in which we do not cause suffering for ourselves or others. We have not always understood or accepted this great possibility. Together and with all living beings, we can arouse wisdom, compassion, and kindness. It is not too late. In fact, it is the exact right time. May we begin anew. With all our hearts, we go for refuge, turning to the Buddhas and the 10 directions and all the Bodhisattvas, those noble disciples. Very sincerely, we recognize our errors and the mistakes of our wrong judgments. Please bring the balm of clear water to pour on the roots of our afflictions. Please bring the raft of true teachings to carry us over to the oceans of sorrow. We vow to live an awakened life, to practice smiling and conscious breathing, and to study the teachings authentically transmitted. Diligently, we shall live in mindfulness. May we begin anew. Honoring the words of Dogen, the Dharma is amply present in every person, but without practice, it is not manifested. Without realization, it is not attained. We will endeavor to speak lovingly, to be affectionate, to care for others in our Sangha, our fellowships, our families, and beyond, to bring the roots of joy to many places, helping people to abandon sorrow, to respond with deep gratitude to the kindness of parents, partners, children, teachers, and friends. With deep faith, we light up the incense of our heart. We ask the Buddha of compassion to be our protector on the wonderful path of practice. We vow to practice diligently, cultivating the fruits of this practice. May we begin anew. So thank you for going with me on that little journey. I think many of us would like to get through the next week without New Year's Eve parties or whatever else kind of things go on. But the fact of the matter is that the position of the sun and the moon and where we are in our lives gives us the opportunity to say, may we begin anew, not judging. In Buddhism, we don't do a lot of talking about right or wrong. What did I do wrong last year? Or what could I have done better? We do a lot of talking instead about, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, what is the most compassionate thing I could do? What is the wisest thing I could do? What is the most inclusive thing that I could engage in? And so as we go through this next week, my wish for myself and for all of you, remembering that we can do together what we cannot do alone, is let's create a world where peace, love, and the mind of Zazen are our paths forward. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you. Shall we have a sit? Maybe you can make me the host again, and then I'll manage the bells. We'll sit for 10 minutes or so.
You are the host now.
Okay, I'm the host. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Thank you.